Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Hi, everybody. This is Lois Sonstegard. I'm here today with Bill Crane. Bill Crane is a real estate broker in the Chicago area and has developed a university also for educating and training people who are interested in the real estate business. He has also published some interesting books. One is on generating clients, looking at how do you leverage and keep your clients once you get them. So Bill, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit. That's a small introduction. Tell us about what you want us to know.
All right. Thanks so much, Lois. Yeah, like you said, I've been a real estate broker for over 20 years here in the Chicagoland area. And I've been training agents and brokers for close to 20 years, about 17 years, because I just kind of did well at it right from the start because I already had sales experience before I ever got into real estate. I actually started selling when I was 5 years old. And it's a whole nother story for a different podcast, but the bottom line is my mom pushed me into sales as a little kid, had me selling pine cones, newspapers, steak knives, telephone books, like you name it. Pretty much sold everything door to door. And then when I became a real estate agent, I was selling door to door, door knocking and then cold calling on the phone. And eventually, I got into marketing. And I found that marketing is really leverage. So I believe you've got to be good at sales to do marketing. But what marketing really does is leverages all of that so that you can do more in less time.
So when you started training brokers and real estate agents, what motivated you to do that?
What motivated me was nothing more than accident. Like I was doing really well, and then people asked me how I was doing it. So people in my office and my broker asked me to help train some agents, and then I would go to conferences and I met other people from different parts of the country, and they asked me how I was doing it. And then, next thing you know, people are asking me, well, can you teach me? Can you mentor me? Can you coach me? And I was like, okay, I guess I can. How does that work? And then they told me, well, I'll pay you, $200 a month or whatever. And then I was like, really? So it kind of started that way at the beginning. And then, I just enjoyed doing it. Plus I started building a team as well in my own real estate office. And so, of course, I had to train those people, and that gave me even more leverage. Having people working under me is really the foundation of any business. You can't, basically if you're a solopreneur, it sounds super cool, but really you don't have a business, you have a job and you work for a crazy person.
Yourself primarily there. Yeah.
Exactly.
So your book, building and leveraging clients, or
generating clients for life. So that's all about not only how to generate clients, but how to create that relationship so that they don't want to go anywhere else. So they keep coming back to you over and over and over again.
So now when you coach, Bill, are your coaching clients primarily people who are involved in the real estate business, or are you branching out more broadly?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of the training I do is in the real estate industry. A lot of the consulting I do is outside of the real estate industry. So, so sales training, I mostly will focus on specifically real estate agents. But when it comes on to consulting, like building a marketing plan, a sales presentation, a pitch, a website, a funnel, just all the different components that go into building a business. It seems like most realtors, they just want to know how to sell. They want to know how to get a lead, take a listing, put a house on the market, and that's all they really want to do. And that's why they work for a broker who really has the business. And then because everyone's an independent contractor, it's funny, the real estate brokers a lot of times don't even run their business really the way they should, because they've got all these people that are just out there making sales and they get a piece of the action. So they're not really building a complete business. So when I started going to other marketing conferences years ago, like Dan Kennedy conferences and things like that, and I started to meet other people from other walks of life and other businesses. And so that's how I started, branching out and doing consulting for people in other industries.
So, Bill, part of what fascinated me about you is one of the things that you talk about is building millionaires. You would like to build 1,000 millionaires, create $1 billion, right, in funds and money that could then be used to make an impact on the world. So what brought you to that dream? I mean, dreams come from something. So how did that dream come about?
I think what that was born from is just seeing that, obviously there's a lot of problems in our world. And especially right now, it seems like everyone's arguing about what's the right thing to do. And it doesn't matter if it's Republicans or Democrats, they both think they're right. They both think the other side's wrong. They both have strong opinions. And at the end of the day, nothing gets done. So, and I see people like, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and they're playing obviously at a super high level. And they've got their own agenda to change the world. But it's kind of narrow in focus, right? So I don't know, one day, because I actually retired in my 30s. And after a few years, I got bored and I decided I wanted to, get back and what kind of impact could I have? And in somehow, some way, as I was going through that, and the first student that I had who became a millionaire, it just kind of sparked an idea in my head. Oh my God, I want to create 1,000 millionaires, because then we'd have $1 billion network. And then all these people from different industries, different walks of life, even different countries that see things from a different perspective can all bring things together and then make a massive impact on the world. Is kind of creating like a mastermind effect of how to influence change through their own business development. Not necessarily philanthropy and donating money, because I actually don't even believe in that. Because what I believe is if you want to give $1 million to some organization, then create a business with that money, right? That's going to throw off $1 million every year in perpetuity, rather than you just give it and then let them spend it and it's done. Why not create something that is sustaining and lasts forever, to help the same cause?
So if you're trying to create $1 billion network, basically, you have to have people who would have a shared ideology. Is that correct or no?
I think we end up with a shared ideology, but, because people are coming from all different places, it's I think the shared ideology is that they want to do good, right? So we don't get into the politics of it, because there are people, they're Republicans, they're Democrats, they're independents, they have all different thought processes, but the underlying message is that they want to fix things. They want to make things better. So it's without being political, which I think our whole political system would benefit from kind of going in that direction. I know in Europe they do things that way a little bit, instead of having two parties, some of them have 8 or 10 or 12 or whatever. But that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, I don't think the ideology is necessarily all the same, but the goal is the same. And that is to make a difference, make a change, fix problems, and have an impact.
So your on problem fixing is really your orientation. So how are you doing with creating your 1,000 millionaires?
We've definitely got a way to go. We've got hundreds to go. And, I'm going to be at this for a long time. So it depends on, what I'm working on right now is I recently, about, 6-8 months ago, I decided that I want to scale back the consulting business because it takes so much of my time, and I want to ramp up the education business. So putting out courses for different things, like whether it be real estate training or high ticket sales training, or like I just did one on testimonials, how to get emotionally compelling testimonials to help businesses not only generate leads, but convert those leads. Because I see so many people whose testimonials are just like horrible, right? So I've got these different courses, and putting them out there online, I can help a lot more people in a lot less time, which will, I think, be able to help grow that 1,000 millionaire list much, much faster. It's still going to take time, obviously, but, I don't want it to take more than one lifetime.
Right. So legacy building for you is about what? Solving problems, but for you, what do you look for your legacy to be?
Yeah, as far as what my legacy is, I don't know that I even think that far ahead. Like I'm not trying to create, like I don't have a plan, like I want this to be my legacy. But I think I'll let what I do create that legacy, whatever it's going to be. But definitely I see myself as a problem solver and someone who I believe has a unique perspective and be able to solve problems, in a unique, simplistic, fast, and efficient way. Like just to help people create freedom for themselves, because like one of the problems that we have in the world is, especially the United States, people have this illusion of freedom, and there really isn't. Like if you have a bunch of debt, then like I have to tell you, you're not free. You're a debt slave, really. And so, to help people to, become unburdened, from their debt, from their mortgages, and all of that kind of stuff. It was empowering experience for me to go through. So if I can help people to have the same thing, because I think people that have no debt are really independent, and they can make their own decisions, and they're much less likely to be manipulated, by politics or government or whatever, because, when you're debt free, you can think more clearly.
So you said that there was a journey that brought you to that conclusion. Can you share that journey?
Yeah, the journey was, back in like when the real estate bubble crashed here, 2007, 2008. I was heavily invested in real estate. Like all the big shot gurus tell you, like, well, what you have to do is you constantly leverage everything, get another loan, buy another house, get another loan, buy another house, or apartment building, or whatever the case may be. Well, what happened to me was when I had about $5 million worth of assets and about $3 million in loans. So like technically a pretty good position to be. But then one day the banks did what they call drive-by BPOs. And so they determined a value on these homes. And because everything had crashed so quickly, now instead of being $5 million, worth of assets with a $3 million debt position, I was at about 2.5 to 3 million in assets with a $3 million debt position. So what they did was
upside down fast.
Yeah, it was upside down really, really fast.
Right.
And then, so my rude awakening was I received a bounce check notice in the mail. I'm like, well, that's not even possible, because like I've got all kinds of money in the bank and everything's connected with like, I think they call it a sweeper account. Like if you mess up this account, it takes it from the other one, whatever. So I called the bank and I said, what's going on here? I just got this bounce check notice, but I've got like, in different accounts over $400,000 in the bank. She's like, oh no. Yeah, I can see that you closed all your accounts out on Thursday. And yeah, so this check came through after the account was closed. So you need to bring in, I can't remember what it was exactly, like $152 into the bank or something. Like, what are you talking about? So I go into the bank, I go right upstairs. I had a really good relationship with the bank. It was like a small, neighborhood bank, which I don't have too many of anymore. So I could pretty much walk in there anytime I want and, almost snap my fingers and get a loan for another property because we had done really well together. And so the guy's name was also Bill. He says, Bill, okay, I know why you're here. Come on in and sit down. Mm-hmm. And he says, I don't know how to tell you this, but, last Thursday when I got here in the morning, the FBI and the FDIC was here and we got raided Wednesday night, they're taking over the bank.
Wow.
I'm like, what are you talking
about? A lot of banks in those years. Yeah.
So they used what they call the right of set off. And if people don't know, the right of set off is basically, it's in every single, anything that you've ever signed for a bank has it in there. Like a checking account, a money market account, a savings account, it doesn't matter. Somewhere buried deep in there is the right of set off. And what it is if you owe the bank money and the bank is holding money for you, they can use the right of set off to set off the money you owe them against the money you have deposited. Because essentially when you deposit the money, it's not your money anymore. You've given it to the bank and they've given you a promissory note. And so it's almost like if I gave you $1 million and said, hey, or if I borrowed $1 million from you and said, hey, Lois, I just came into all this money. Can you hold it? And you say, yeah. And it's like $800,000. But then the next day you're like, hey, Bill, guess what? I got great news. You only owe me $200,000 now. And I'm like, what? I needed that money. That's essentially what the banks did to me and to millions of people across the United States and probably in other countries too. Who, anyone who had a loan that was set up that way, because I had a commercial portfolio, and so they had instead of like a normal foreclosure process that would take years, they could just call the notes due because they felt like it. They didn't really need a reason, although the reason they used was that the assets are no longer valuable enough, for a loan position that's on them. So they called them all due, basically gave me 30 days to pay up. Well, now as a real estate broker, in the real estate crash, going out to try to get another $3 million loan on $2 million worth of assets, they all just laughed at me, But they, at the same time, they said, hey, do you got anybody who needs a loan? We won't give you one, but if you have some you can send in our direction, that would be great. So I just learned that, the banks, even though they might smile when you walk in, they're really not your friend. It's a business and they're looking out for their interests and their interests first. And it's fine. That's probably the way it should be. But, I certainly learned it the hard way.
So, Bill, that was the beginning of that journey. So for you, that financial freedom was hugely important. It really was the base for your being able to move to the next step. So my sense is as you work with people, that is probably your number one focus, because you can't be a millionaire that's going to solve the problems of the world if you're beholden, in a sense, financially. Is that correct? Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah. Absolutely. Because, what it taught me was that I wasn't really free. All this freedom I thought I had, I didn't really have. And they basically pulled the carpet out from under me. I literally had $8 in my wallet. And that was it. I had to go get a job. Luckily, my father-in-law was the highway department commissioner. And so to just be able to put food on the table like that week, I had to go get a job at the highway department. And the only thing it could give me was, because, fast sort of backing up a little bit, they put all these things into foreclosure, right? And it instantly triggered something that's called universal default. What that means is if you default on one loan, you technically default on them all. So all of my credit cards instantly canceled. So I couldn't do anything. Got $8 in your pocket, no credit cards, no bank account. What you going to do? You're going to rob a bank or are you going to go get a job? And so I got a job, and the only thing he could give me was put on this orange jacket and go on the side of the street and pick up stuff. And, and it wasn't like it was 50 miles away. It was, in the area that I worked. So like, everybody knew me, saw me, doing that. So that was like super, super humbling. So I knew that I had to work my way out of it as fast as possible, and I would never take another loan again.
Wow. So you have continued in the real estate business without taking loans. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So the difference is, and I'm not saying that nobody should ever get loans, and I'm probably to the point now where maybe I'd get a loan, but I'm just more protected than I would have been back then. And, but like, so what I did when I got back into it is I just worked hard, accumulated cash. And then when I had enough cash, I would buy another property. Now, as luck would have it, we were also in a real estate collapse. So everything got really cheap, so I could work, make money, buy stuff on the cheap, and sort of build my way back up that way.
So when you do your coaching and your consulting is for businesses in general. You were saying sales and marketing largely. Coaching in a sense is largely consulting and sales also, right?
Yeah.
And solving problems is also sales and marketing in a sense. So for you, what is the advice that you have for people as they're looking at what's next in their life? How do they pull their pieces together? And where would you suggest that they really turn in advice that they should listen to?
Well, I think it really depends on where they're at right now, where they've come from and where they want to go. So like if somebody's starting a business, then, the first thing they need to look at is sales. If someone's having trouble with their business, the first thing they have to look at is sales. If someone's is okay in their business, if they want to grow it, they have to look at sales. Like you're not going to grow your business by hiring another accountant.
Right.
But you could grow your business by hiring another salesperson or creating a funnel that is selling things on autopilot. Either way, there's almost no problem in business that can't be solved by making more sales. Because sometimes you throw money at a problem, but you can't throw money at a problem if you're not making sales. So you've got to make the sales, and and that means you have to generate leads, you have to have marketing. It's really all tied together.
So you're wearing your 2-Coma Coach shirt. That is your funnel background, I take it. Tell me about it.
Yeah, 2comacoach.com. I came up with that close to a year ago, because I got into Russell Brunson's program, which I think is where I met you. Or no, I met you. I think you might be in there too, but didn't I sit next to you in another program?
Well, yes, but we're both in the 2 CCX. Yeah.
So we're traveling kind of in the same internet world. And so, one day I was just thinking to myself about that mission I think it was on some other podcast, and like someone said, so you're like the 2-Coma coach, because I'm on a mission to create millionaires. And I was like, yeah, exactly. And then I went online, 2comacoach.com, and it was available. And I was like, okay, that's it. Perfect. I just bought it right then and there. So that's really how it was. It was almost like an accident. It's beautiful.
Many people in the audience may not know what the 2-Coma Club group is. So why don't you explain that?
Yeah, so the 2-Coma Club is an exclusive club where in order to get into it, you have to produce $1 million in sales through a sales funnel. And it's, the brainchild of that was Russell Brunson and the ClickFunnels organization. So it's I think there's 500 or something like that in there now. There might be more, I'm not sure. But yeah, if you produce $1 million, because there's 2 commas, right, in $1 million, then you become a member of the Coma Club and you get this gold record, which mine's hanging on the wall, right? I'm going to go get it because it's like super cool. And like maybe some of your people will think it's cool too. I think it's cool. I keep it up on the wall.
It is very cool.
It's just a reminder to myself because like everyone else, like I suffer from self-doubt. Like I don't know anyone who does. Like if someone says I don't suffer from self-doubt, they're lying, and worst of all to themselves probably. So I keep it right there just to remind myself because I'm always, going through the creative process. What am I going to do next? How am I going to make this bigger? How am I going to make this better? And I end up doubting myself, and then I can look right over there and like, okay, you got this. You can do this. It doesn't mean it's easy, but you can figure it out. So, and then I don't know. As a kid, I always wanted to be a rock star or something, and then when you go to that event and there's 5,000 screaming people and you're getting this gold record presented to you, it's almost like a fantasy. I don't know how to sing or play the guitar or the drums or anything, but I still got the gold record.
You got the golden record. Yeah. So, Bill, we've been talking for almost half an hour, and the time always goes much too fast, I think.
Yeah.
Last minute thoughts that you would like to share that you want to leave with the audience.
Yeah, whatever you want to do, just don't listen to the people who tell you can't, because the people who tell you can't are the people who are never going to do it. They're not going to help you. They're not going to do it themselves anyway. Just push forward and let the marketplace tell you whether or not it's a good idea. It's usually good, if you have a new idea, right, to maybe do a Google search and see if there's anything else, because sometimes I do consulting for people and we determine that the business idea that they had is one that doesn't make any sense to pursue because there's no market for it.
Right.
So that's valuable to people too, because I've had people that were getting ready to sink, hundreds of $1,000s into a new business, but they didn't, they just were so excited about this idea and they had money from some other business. And so they figured, well, I'm going to go do this one now. And then we determined there's no market for it. And then that saves them, of course, a lot of money. And some of those people have decided to do a different business, which I helped them with. And some of them just decided, okay, well, all right, I'll stick with my other business, pay me my fee and move on.
So one of the things that occurs to me as you talk, Bill, is you take people who, like you retired your first time at 30, right? But there are other people who retire early. And right now we see CEOs of major corporations, their tenure is getting shorter. They retire often younger. Mm-hmm. And then sort of what's that next chapter? And I think some of what you have talked about in terms of creating like your mastermind group is a great opportunity for these people because sometimes you don't have those skills. It's like going back to being an entrepreneur in some ways. And those are different skill sets than big corporate work styles. Yeah.
So for me, I had the advantage of never, ever being in the corporate world. Okay. Like my mother raised me. She's really kind of weird, like demented message, because like she made me a little entrepreneur. In other words, so like she's always having me sell stuff from the time I was 5 years old. But like all through school, she always told me, you're not going to college. Like, it's not going to happen. We don't have the money for it. She told me, and she still tells me this once in a while, she says, you were born nothing. You are nothing, and you're never going to be nothing. And,
what a message.
It was like a horrible message, but at the same time, she like made me go on and do stuff. Like, for example, I have like a perfect attendance in school. Like I've never, ever missed a day of school because she wouldn't allow it, right? And so like from kindergarten to, all the way through 12, like I only went to high school, right? So, but I always got an award every year for that perfect attendance. And I didn't necessarily get good grades because I was told you can't go to college. So to me, as a kid, that meant, well, then the grades don't matter. So like I usually got, I got A's in things like math in my high school. I had a marketing class and I got A's in that, but the stuff I didn't care about, I just got a D in and it didn't matter. So it really just created this interesting perspective, I think. And I'm grateful for it.
So did you ever go on and get university training, or are you self-taught primarily?
Completely self-taught. I have definitely spent a lot more money on my education than anyone who has, whatever the highest degree that Harvard would offer. Like, I guarantee I've spent more money. In fact, I've consulted for people who graduated Harvard, and they said, I didn't learn that at Harvard. So, I think of it like that I've probably learned, what do they call it? It's like equal to, a marketing degree at a Harvard or whatever. Like, I should be able to get a degree, but they don't do it that way.
Right.
Because I would venture to say that I probably know more about marketing than whoever's teaching it at most of these Ivy League schools. Yeah. Because most of them have never really done it. Like, I really like Babson College because, like, from what I understand, that college is like all entrepreneurs or, actual multimillionaires or businesses that are teaching there. And that sounds really cool. But I think most of our school system is people that read it out of a book. And I'm definitely not a theorist. The stuff I teach people actually works. And I've actually spent a lot of money to figure out what works.
You're very, but you know what? In the end, it's the pragmatic approach that wins, right? You've got to know how to cut through the mustard and get to the finish line.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like, I'm not saying college is bad. I'm saying that, like, in my experience, people either succeed or fail with or without it. Maybe if you want to go in the corporate world, I'm sure it definitely opens some doors. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur, no one really cares.
So let me just, our time is really moving so quickly, but I want to ask one more question. How did you shift that mindset of your mother's to this mindset of, I shall overcome? I mean, I hear that through all your stories.
Well, the interesting thing was, like, because my mother, like, I think I was like a natural born rebel, right? So because she told me I couldn't do things and because I wasn't going to be successful at something, I just took it as like, bullshit. Like, I'm going to do it. Like, what do you mean I can't do it? I'm going to do it. Now, but it's also selective, right? Because as a kid, like, I didn't want to go to college. Like, that sounded horrible to me. Like, I don't even like regular school. So, like, I'm going to go to college. So when my mom told me that, I was like, fantastic.
It was in your point. Yeah.
Yeah. But like all these other things, when people have, it doesn't matter if it's her or someone else, it seems like the easiest way to get me to do something is to tell me I can't. So.
Well, that's true with a lot of people. That's that reverse logic that works. Bill, you have been so wonderful. Thank you so much. And to those of you who are listening, if you have questions or would like to be in contact with Bill, we certainly will be glad to make that opportunity. And I'm sure Bill will be glad to respond. Am I right on that?
Yeah, absolutely. They can reach out to me at billcrane.com. The email would be bill@billcrane.com or on Facebook or through Lois would be fantastic as well.
Okay. Super. Thank you so much for what you've shared. I appreciate your business wisdom, but also what you shared about yourself as a person, because whatever it is that we do, each of us has something that we need to deal with and overcome, right?
Absolutely.
And so I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
All right. Thank you, Lois. Had a blast. I look forward to doing this again sometime.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Okay.
All right.
So thank you so much for...
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.